I want to do a really quick experiment with all of you. Now then. So who defines this as something that could be moving, or you could see one of your friends being moved by? By show of hands. All right then, a lot of people here. Now then, who considers this to be something that can move people? This is a business model canvas. Only Amy Whitney. Now then, we're going to do an audio experiment. I want you, by show of hands again, to see if you would consider this a work of art. All right. Now again, keep in mind, just see if you consider this creativity or artistic. Blackbirds singing in the dead of night. Take these broken wings and learn to fly. All your life, you were only waiting for this moment to arrive. Now, who would consider that a work of art? Thank you, Paul McCartney. Now then, I'm going to give you a couple more audio cues, and just keep in mind if you consider this a work of art. Go-to marketing strategy. Minimal viable product. B2C customer relationships or B2B? Okay, so what this experiment has proved is that not many people consider business to be overtly creative or artistic. In 2007, I classified myself as being business phobic. My family had just been uprooted from London in the United Kingdom to live in New Jersey. And I was incredibly angry that my father's company had just uprooted our living and plopped us in the middle of nowhere. I began to look at other instances of businesses exploiting people, of harming the environment, of really causing great harm to the world. I began to hate business in 2007. I was wildly depressed. I hated myself. I was really not in the best of mindsets. But I found solace in art, in creativity, in picking up this old thing, in making paintings, in photography, in theater. I found that art healed, art united. Creativity was the answer to the evil that is business. So fast forward a couple of years to when I go into college, and because of the PLS requirements required by Clark, I need to take a business course. So I decided to take an entrepreneurship class, which I find is the least painful. Then something happened. I got hooked on entrepreneurship. I loved the idea of starting a small business, and I even learned about something called social entrepreneurship, which is business helping people. But there was still something missing from this equation. Now, I'm a very kinesthetic learner, so I needed to experience this magic. I needed to experience this help. Reading about it wasn't enough. And it still just didn't seem very creative to me. Minimal viable products, go-to marketing strategies. It didn't have that spark. So fast forward again to last summer, 2014, I find myself in the Philippines visiting my grandparents, and we stumble across a small plot of land owned by an NGO called Gawad Kalinga. This plot of land is called the Enchanted Farm. And on this land, they have 9 enterprises, all underneath the GK umbrella. They have over 200 families of refugees, people who lived in poverty, and even ex-militia members, some of whom fought against my grandfather in some of the conflicts in the Philippines. All living peacefully in their community village because they signed a contract saying, because of the work and education you have given my family, I will promise I will turn against those old ways of mine. And I was just astounded that a business could house such good people. It turned my whole world upside down. I was like, how is a business doing this? It just doesn't make any sense. And so I found myself wanting to figure out what makes this place tick. So I stayed overnight, and I volunteered to help out at an event where members of the World Economic Forum would be visiting the farm. And so my job was to clean some chairs. So I was cleaning these chairs, and a little girl, about yay high, by the name of Ami, came up to me. And she just stared at me. Clearly, I was an outsider. I had bright red hair at the time as well, so I looked a little bit ridiculous. And she just stared at me cleaning these chairs. And then eventually I handed her my phone and I said, hey, do you want to play Temple Run, Angry Birds? So she sat in the corner playing the games. And then she got up and started helping me clean these chairs. She joined me in something so mundane, and when I was her age, I never would have helped anyone do anything. And I just wondered, how? How did they get someone to be so helpful, so kind at such a young age? And so, eventually we had to part ways. I helped out being a tour guide for the members of the World Economic Forum. Through a mix-up, I ended up being mistaken as a delegate from the World Economic Forum, and then became an official member of the World Economic Forum, which was something else. And I saw Jaime again. She was wearing a bright yellow top, pink skirt, and she ran up to me and she was screaming, Kuya Jaime, which means big brother in Tagalog. And I picked her up and I spun her around. And as I was putting her down, I looked into her eyes and I saw something incredible. I felt it in the aura around her. I saw it in her smile. I felt it on her skin. This girl who was born in poverty, but raised in a safe environment, was emanating that same energy that a musician emanates when they reach the crescendo in their song. The energy that a poet radiates when they're dictating verse to an audience. The energy that a painter has when they lock themselves in a room for days on end to finish their masterpiece. This girl had that spark of creativity that I thought belonged only in the realm of art. I thought, how? How did she get this? I had trained in years trying to teach myself guitar, just to touch people, to move people. How did she have this energy? And it was through a business. That's what broke my mind. This girl had that energy given to her through a business. And I realized in that moment, creativity is not about trying to show off. It's not about making yourself feel excellent. It is about moving people. It's about sharing something you love, that spark of energy within you, and trying to better others with it, moving them to a higher plane of being. In my case, to arise out of my depression, I would play guitar. In Amy's case, to get out of that life of poverty and grief she had, a business had given her opportunity. Creativity is about moving people to be better. And we all have this spark of creativity within us. You just do. It's a fact. If you like things, you have a spark of creativity inside of you. So it's our job to share it. And now I want to share with you one of the most creative men in history. It's not Vincent. We all know Vincent's story. I don't want to talk about Vincent. I want to talk about his brother, Theo. Theo was an art dealer. Not as much of a classy job as being a world-renowned painter. But Theo was a giant in the art industry all on his own. He distributed the paintings of Degas and Monet. Many people credit him with the rapid spread of the Impressionistic movement. Now picture this. You're an art buyer. You see one of Vincent's paintings for the first time. You see this. People have never seen paintings like this before. No one sees colors in the skies like that. No one sees colors in the hills like that. Only Vincent did. But it was Theo's job to convince the world, to convince people that this is beauty. This can be seen. Now imagine what that pitch sounded like. What words did he use? It would put Don Draper to shame. Think about it. And the Impressionistic movement wasn't brought upon by just painters, but salesmen. A businessman helped bring upon Impressionism. And if that doesn't illustrate that creativity is everywhere, whether it's in the scientist finding a God particle, or a chemist discovering the crystallization formations, or a historian finding an ancient artifact, or a teacher who volunteers to teach inner city children. That's all creativity. We all have that spark within us, and it is your job to share it. And as a closing statement, I would like to share a song with you that my friend wrote. It inspired me to become a better person, and I hope it does the same for you. You and your Van Gogh sky eyes, you and your Van Gogh sky eyes, blue with a tinge of white eyes, you and your in a field of crows, that's where my mind retreats to. That's where the sky touches the earth, and where the curse was first. And my mind, while it often strays, and my words, they often betray. If I ever feel like I'm getting lost, I'll think of you and I'll find myself in you and your Van Gogh sky eyes, you and your Van Gogh sky eyes, blue with a tinge of white eyes, you and your amongst the starry sky, as the cypress flow by, and the rolling hills, as the village sleeps. So many times do I wish that this was me, amongst the hills of uncertainty. If I ever feel like I'm standing still, I'll think of you and I'll lose myself in you and your Van Gogh sky eyes, you and your Van Gogh sky eyes, blue with a tinge of white eyes, you and your go out and inspire people. Thank you.